Yeah.
And if you're going to be an excellent professional at salesmanship, you got to have some delayed gratification, boy. You better just dial it in. You better manage your dopamine levels, because you're going to have to go in there and manage the conversation and manage the emotions of these people and manage all the energy of that place. And you're going to have to keep it together long enough so you can reap the rewards of all the work that you've put in and the practice, drilling, and rehearsing that you've done of your processes and your closes. And then you get to collect on the dopamine when you're walking out of there with a check. This is the Just Real Quick podcast, where we discuss how to succeed in the world of sales through confidence, discipline, and consistency. Are you ready to be intentional about creating more opportunities that lead to sales? Tune into this episode right now for the latest insights and strategies that will take your sales game to the next level. I'm your host, Jefferson K. Rogers. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. Today, I got Jared Everett in the studio, my boy. And out in Idaho today, we got Blake joining us from the field on Zoom. And today is going to be something you're going to want to pay attention to, and something I'm just learning about. And Blake's been spending a lot of time studying and understanding for himself and for his own team. And we're going to dive deep into something that you may not have ever even heard of, and you don't even know has anything to do with your productivity or how you conduct your daily life, but your dopamine levels. It was new to me, like very recently, how important it is to manage your dopamine. Where's it coming from? How many different areas of your life you're getting dopamine? You don't even realize it. So let's jump into this thing, huh?
Right on, dude. Do you want me just to dive in or what?
Yeah, let's hear it, dude. I mean, I know we've had a couple of conversations about this already. When you get going on talking about dopamine, it's like you've been taking it to another level with how you understand where it's coming from and how it applies to your people and yourself. And everybody can learn from it in a way that can help them with their daily lives and their productivity and their sales career.
Yeah, man. And I guess I'm not like a scientist, but this information is pretty dope. I would say it's dope.
You mean
information?
You mean to say it's dope? Is that what you
I'd
mean?
say I would classify this as dope.
This may come up a lot throughout the process.
It's dope.
Dope.
I mean,
it's dope ass information. But I've been hearing a lot from like Andrew Huberman, his podcast, and he put some posts out there the other day too. It was like the synchronicity of the world or of the universe just like has been feeding me this information over and over again. And it was super applicable for my sales team and the stuff we were doing. And then like just day after day, week after week, I would just get more information about dopamine. And so I know me and Jeff and Jared as well, we've been talking about it. And like, we're like, why don't we do a podcast on this? So this isn't a scientific podcast about dopamine. We're not going to talk about chemical compounds and like, which Pokemon is the strongest with dopamine. Like, we're not going to talk about that. Like that's for Andrew Huberman. Go find him. There's a bunch of scientific stuff out there, but the way dopamine works, basically it's just the reward center in your head gives you a reward based off of like your instinctual motives, like, survival and all these things. And so it's all tied to these root motives. You want social interactions. You want to be loved. You want to procreate. You want to further the human species. Like that's just in our nature.
or even eat food.
Yeah. You want to eat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Eat water. You want to have comfort. You want to like avoid danger and stuff. That's all tied to this reward center. And it's literally like, it's, in my opinion, it's like binary. If you're familiar with computer programming, it's just zeros and ones, just the yes, no value. Is this, yes, no, like, did I eat dopamine? Did I do whatever? It's just, it's like an on off switch in your head and you receive dopamine. And so a lot of that like is understanding how we get dopamine. And we've been kind of analyzing that as a sales team. And we made some big changes. Basically, my sales team was underperforming because we were getting easy dopamine. You want to get, according to Huberman, you want to get your dopamine after effort, right? And so I have a ton of examples, but like if you guys were to describe in your life, like what is like easy, and it's not always bad dopamine, but like what is easy dopamine for you guys in your own personal lives?
Eating something sweet.
I was just going to say, eating is just such an easy one.
Or, getting on Instagram, scrolling a little bit, get your little dopamine hit.
Like, what would you tie that to? Like, why Instagram? Like, what does that do for you?
It's hard to say, but it's like it's information. It's quick information. It's content. It's like basketball player, hot girl, a freaking leopard or a jaguar jumping in a river, like all this cool kind of stuff. Yeah. And it just kind of sucks you in because it just changes so quickly. And it's just like, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Novel, so much novelty, you know?
And it's readily accessible. Like you can get it quick. You just click on your phone. Oh, I got a notification on my Instagram Messenger.
Yeah, I mean, you can give a chimpanzee an iPhone, and they'll sit there and start scrolling. What's next? Yeah. What's next? What's next?
Same with a kid, you know? Mm-hmm. Like a kid, they're just doped out of their minds. And so we have all these things that give us like easy, really super easy dopamine, like eating. And the effort that you, like the dopamine itself is not bad, but the effort required to get the dopamine is bad. And so Andrew Huberman talks about it more in depth. You and I, Jeff, we're on the carnivore diet, and there's a lot of effort into that meal preparation versus the effort required to like sit in a drive-thru for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. That's easy dopamine. And I've been going out of my way on these trips to like bring all of my cooking stuff that I need to have 2 ribeye steaks a day on this carnivore diet. And it's fucking amazing. It's like life-changing stuff. But the dopamine, my food is now behind like some effort. And so I think it gives me a better hit of dopamine. The effort is there and the dopamine is second. Another example I was using that really resonates with young salesmen is like
video games,
like anything, video games, like not to get weird, but like masturbation and pornography.
Yeah.
Those things, like they're so destructive because it's easy dopamine. But like if you jerk off in the morning, right? And like we're all guilty of this at some point in our life. If you jerk it off, like it's not you just like your brain is telling you that you just saved the human race and you just passed your seed on to the next generation. Like you just created another human. That's what your brain's telling you to do. Like your posterity is secure, but like you just jerked off in a gym sock, right? Like there's nothing, you didn't accomplish anything, you know, but you got this huge hit of dopamine. And same thing with a video game. It's like, yeah, I beat the level, I beat the game, or I prestiged in Call of Duty or whatever. I put some effort into this video game and I did literally nothing. I didn't move. I didn't get my heart rate up, you know, and there's some intense like video game champions that are like millions of dollars are on the line. Maybe their heart rate's up. Sure. But you know, they're getting this huge reward of dopamine for absolutely fucking nothing. And that's hard for me to swallow because I'm a huge video gamer. You guys know I run a video game community. I love hanging out with friends, but the types of game I play, we were talking about with my gaming community, we chase there's a different amount of effort we put into these simulation games. And so like you'll fly an airplane in these games and you're sitting on the runway for like 30 minutes before you even take off, just checking stuff. Like it's an actual simulation. And so you get dopamine differently. So understanding like the hobby's not bad, right? The addiction to something is not really the problem. It's just dopamine. Every single thing is dopamine, man. Like, and I'm going to share an idea with you. You guys tell me what you think about this. But if I eat some food, like right now, if I stuff the donut in my mouth, the moment that hits my mouth and I start chewing, my brain's like, hey, here's some dopamine, Blake. Like you're filling your belly. So if I fill my belly, I get dopamine. I feel satiated, right? My body's like, hey, good job. We're going to survive. You know, we're going to store some of this fat so we survive the winter. So here's some dopamine. But your brain is just on off. It doesn't account for like, is that actually nutritious food? Like, does it give you any value or is it garbage? It doesn't filter it. So imagine this. What if you didn't get dopamine from eating? What if your brain gave you dopamine after your body processed the food and said, this was nutritious or like this wasn't nutritious?
Yeah, you don't qualify for dopamine on that one.
Yeah, if that was the case, nobody would be fucking fat.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't get dopamine hits from shitty food, from sugars, from all the shit that we like to eat as a society, all the mush that people feed us. But like understanding that, now I can diet better. Because now I can, as one of our good friends, Jeff Fieldstead said to me once, this changed my life. Because Jeff Fieldstead, look, he was just talking about his carnivore diet. And he asked me a question. He's like, are you eating to actually live, or are you living just to eat whenever?
Well, that's it's like Italians. They're like, you know, people, they live to eat, or they eat to live. We live to eat. It's like an Italian saying. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I mean, food is a huge part of our, you know, our species as humans. Like, we're very, very social. We want to sit down and talk over food. Like, that's every generation, every culture does that. And so, but if you start understanding where you're getting your dopamine from, like our whole society is just dopamine everywhere. And there's some books I want to read about dope. There's one called like, I think it's like Doped America. I can't remember the word. I probably shouldn't say it, but because I can't remember the title. But there's a bunch of books on this. But our society is engineered to just be feeding us dopamine all the time. Like, we're just these drug addicts on dopamine. It's like the food that is in the chemicals and everything, the preservatives, the sugars and fats, and the seed oils and everything. They're designed to be as addictive as possible. Like a bag of Skittles, like a Starburst, like whatever you like to eat. It's designed to like get you back there again so you can buy it again. And it really, they've really targeted your dopamine centers. And it's the same thing with everything we do in life. You know, the content you consume, the videos, the TV seasons, the series on TV, the video games, the advertising.
You know what I was just thinking of as you were talking about that?
Yeah.
Is another way that we've heard this come up is instant gratification versus delayed gratification.
That's exactly what I've been thinking.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Delayed gratification.
It's the same thing.
Because, I mean, we've all been conditioned our whole life by TV and video games. You know, I grew up playing Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis and played hours and hours and hours on those. And it's evolved into something completely different and way more interactive and VR and all kinds of other things that can take you way deeper down the rabbit hole. And then there's also this allure of self-employment, entrepreneurship, and this instant gratification that people want because it looks so flashy to be an entrepreneur that they want to start an online store, they want to start a business, whatever it may be, without understanding that there is an ability that these people have that are successful as entrepreneurs that most people just don't have. Most people aren't cut out to be entrepreneurs. It's just the reality of it. Because the 99% of people don't know how to handle delayed gratification. They've never done it. They don't know what it's like. And it's, you can tie it all back to the dopamine, because everybody is so used to just getting their dopamine all day, every day. Just, it's right there at their fingertips. They can eat, they can grab the video games, they can pull up their social media, and it's just boom, boom, boom. Their entire life they've spent getting instant gratification. And then when you're faced with an opportunity and you're going to start a business, or there's something that's going to take some extra work that's involved for the reward, there's a reason why there's not a lot of people that make $1 million a year, because they're not willing to put in the work. They're not willing to handle the delayed gratification that they're going to have to build enough value to earn the $1 million.
Something that I think about is like, say with junk food, right? It's that instant dopamine hit. It's instant gratification. But what happens when you eat junk food over time? Your health goes to shit. Your teeth go bad. You get fat, diabetes, etc. Let's look at that like on the other side of the spectrum. Like, say, I'm not a hunter. I would like to get into hunting, but I know Jeff is. So the other side of that, like, say when you get an elk. So you're out there. I mean, that's what, like, the epitome of delayed gratification. I mean, you're out there, you're hungry, you're in the elements, you're hiking miles and miles and miles. And by the way, you got to pack that thing out. But how good is that dopamine hit when you get that animal? And by the way, I mean, this is like the most nutritious protein, like it's superfood known to man, one of the most nutritious superfoods known to man, elk meat, especially if you get the liver. I mean, how good is that dopamine hit to put in all that work, all that delayed gratification, everything that it takes, all that investment into that hunt, and then finally getting that animal on the other side of it, and then
it's intense.
Filling up your fridge with all of this meat.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that. I mean, it's delayed gratification, but how much more worth it is it to you to accomplish that and see how that feels compared to eating a cookie?
It's so rewarding. That's why if you ever talk to somebody who hunts, most people would spend way more time hunting if they could, because there's such a rewarding experience with hunting. If you're good and you can shoot something. Yeah. Because I spent a lot of years not being very good, and I was just so hungry for that gratification. And then when it happens, I mean, you're right there in that moment. They call it buck fever, because like it's so intense. Like all this work you put in is about to pay off. And if you can hold it together for a long enough and get this shot off, you're about to reap the rewards of this animal. And the trophy, the meat, the pack out, it's all just part of the experience. And it's very similar in business too. Because when I'm starting a business, there's all of this hesitancy and all the uncertainty and all the games that you're playing on yourself. Same thing when you're going into close a deal.
Exactly.
None of us are just resilient against all the questions that start coming into your head about how's this going to play out? Am I good enough today? Are these people ready? And you've got to now go in there and hold your stuff together and not do what most salesmen do and just go in there and start demanding that they buy something. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about this salesman. Actually, it was today. I was talking to a guy today. He was a roofing salesman. He was not much of a closer. He was a salesman. And he goes in there and tells them what he does. Here's how much it is. And I'm going to need you to do that today. Pretty much is the impression that it left with this guy that I was talking to. And he's like, well, I mean, I don't feel like I have enough information to do that today, and that's way overpriced. I'm going to need to get other estimates. And he's like, well, most people don't buy if they take time to think about it. He said that right to him. And he was going for some instant gratification if I ever seen it. He didn't even know how to control himself. Yeah. And if you're going to be an excellent professional at salesmanship, you got to have some delayed gratification, boy. You better just dial it in. You better manage your dopamine levels, because you're going to have to go in there and manage the conversation and manage the emotions of these people and manage all the energy of that place. And you're going to have to keep it together long enough so you can reap the rewards of all the work that you've put in and the practice, drilling, and rehearsing that you've done of your processes and your closes. And then you get to collect on the dopamine when you're walking out of there with a check.
Absolutely. And it's like the ultimate dopamine is that end goal. Now, I think too, you can falter in that direction as well. If all I care about is the dopamine coming from a sale, and I can't get any other gratification or hits of dopamine along the way, I'm kind of doing myself a disservice. I think I will be misguided, or I'll easily be distracted, because the old adage is the man who enjoys walking will walk farther than the guy who wants to get to his destination, who enjoys the destination.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Yeah, it's like, the Forrest Gump scene when he's running across the nation. He doesn't have a destination in mind. He's just running because he likes running, Jenny, like he's just out there. And so that's what I'm trying to teach the sales team is where can we get the dopamine along your sales process? Like, how can we control the reward center in your brain? Because if you're looking for quick dopamine, you're not going to find it in a sales job. Let's be honest. You might every now and then, you knock on the first door and someone's like, yeah, I'll buy it right now. And you get a lay down. Sure. But that's 1 out of 100, and then the other ones, you're going to have to knock 200 doors before you get a sale, right? Some days. And the more you know those statistics. And so it's like, how do you manage your dopamine? So let me paint a picture for you. If you're a salesman out there, we'll use door-to-door industry because that's our industry, but any salesman, if you're doing phone calls or, whatever it is, whatever your prospecting method is, you're out there prospecting, and our door knockers, they're going door to door. They do 100 doors. They don't get an appointment, or maybe they do 60 doors and they get appointments, but the appointments end up falling off or canceling or rescheduling or, just typical stuff when you're prospecting for leads. And if you haven't got any dopamine all day and you're not monitoring this, like all of our door-to-door guys, like almost all of them, what are they doing? They're hitting their vape pens. Like a lot of salesmen, like they go into alcohol. They get dopamine from other places. Like, oh, I'll go home tonight and just play video games until like 5 a.m. because I'm so drained from my day. I didn't get any quick dopamine because they're not thinking about the delayed gratification. They're just thinking subconsciously, their body's being like, I need a reward. I need a reward right now. I haven't been rewarded yet. I need a reward. And so that's why people are like, oh, I could take a break. Yeah. It's like, no, you haven't set anything. You haven't done anything today. You've knocked on a lot of doors and you haven't gotten any sales. You haven't gotten any appointments. You don't even have anybody firmed up. And like, and I used to catch myself being like, oh, I deserve a break. Or I deserve to go just sit in the drive-thru and get that dopamine from some Taco Bell. Right. Or something like that. And that's not necessarily bad to find a respite. Right. And then like have a little hit of dopamine. But like, if you're doing that before the effort, or like it's got to come from the right place.
You're rewarding yourself without the production. It's like,
yes,
let me reward myself without actually doing what I set out to do. And then that confuses your body, because then it's like, well, I'm going to get rewarded no matter what. So I don't need to do anything that's like actually productive.
Exactly.
It's like a consolation prize.
Why should I do my job?
Exactly. That's what we're doing to our kids these days. They can play a soccer tournament and they come in 6th place, and here you go. Here's your 6th place trophy, buddy. It's such a great job.
So the reward center of their brain is being rewarded for being fucking mediocre. It's like, it's such a waste of time. The same thing. What we did with the sales team, I was like, I was just kind of watching these guys' behavior, and they weren't getting any production on the doors, and they were spending a lot of time chasing cheap dopamine. So what we did is we talked about it, and I'm like, hey, you guys are adults. I'm very much of the attitude, like, I'm going to give a man I'm going to give him the chance to be a man and be an adult. But the moment he's not acting that way, then I'll treat him like a kid. And like, if you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing and your leadership is treating you like a kid still, that's the fault of the leadership. I hated that in the military. You're just treated like a child all the time, even though you're highly capable, or you might even have more experience than the person above you sometimes. Like, so that's a whole nother leadership topic, but it's only applicable if like these boys, they're boys. They're not men. We got these sales guys out there, like they don't understand these concepts. And we don't do summer sales. We don't. We're full bore all the time. Like, that's what's cool about JKR is like the guys that work here, they might not do a summer blitz and just go ham and cheese on a neighborhood, like, pest control or Vivint Alarms or whatever, whoever's out there doing the summer sales. It's a blitz. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We keep a high intensity level all year round. We're not a blitz and then stop. We're like all year round. It's like high intensity. It's not as high as a blitz. We're not scrambling. We're just consistently like top level door-to-door knockers. That's what we are in this company. And so we have to really, as leadership, monitor and teach this dopamine thing so these kids can understand, because they're 20, 21 years old. I was an idiot when I was 21 and 22. The only reason I was doing okay is because I had the military keeping me in line. Jeff, you could probably relate to that too. And Jared, your priorities were all over the place when you were younger.
I thought I was pretty hot shit, but man, I was an idiot at 21.
I love me some Madden, some NBA 2K. That's for sure. Now I don't even I haven't played that stuff in years. It doesn't even cross my brain, because you get to a certain point. I mean, I grew up in the digital age. I was born in the 87. So I experienced the whole technology revolution, and we were gaming from I was 5 years old. But you get to a certain point, and for me, it was when I started having kids, and it's just like this different version of me emerged, to where like that wasn't even part of like, not even in like my view. Like, I never think about video games. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't have games on my phone, and I'll see people like, we'll be in a meeting and I'll look over, someone's playing a game on their phone. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how do you have the time?
Yeah. Well, that's what we got to teach people is listen, they didn't even have enough capacity to sit through a meeting for 30 minutes before they needed another shot of dopamine. They got their video game out and they're playing freaking Bejeweled on their phone or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
And something, so when I was looking on my calendar and I saw what the topic of this podcast was, you know, I was getting a little dopamine hit after that. I was doing some scrolling on Instagram and I came across this meme that's behind us here. And it reminded me so much of it. It says, a man who lacks purpose. Well, let me just pull up my phone so I can be in the microphone. So a man who lacks purpose distracts himself with pleasure. And it's a picture. Everybody can see it, I'm sure, that sees the video. But it's a picture of a guy and he's got junk food around him. He's all slumped over, super tired, been up all night playing video games, and he's playing video games. So this guy doesn't have any purpose and he's not getting specific about things. And that reminds me of our coordinators. You know, these guys, they're boys turning into men and they don't quite have a purpose. They don't have a direction. They know that they want to do better and they're a part of like a good company and stuff, but these guys they're not getting organized with it. They're not getting, like I said, specific with it. And because of that, they're utilizing, this is their filler. They don't know what to do. They don't have the direction or whatever it is. And they start filling it with this. So us as leaders, you know, like what you're doing, Blake, is you're giving them direction. You're breaking it down for them. You're letting them know, like, this is how you prioritize your time to be successful. And as we as leaders, as we get better and we develop and we start helping these guys create a roadmap for success for themselves, then it's going to be a lot easier to plug in to delayed gratification. But I mean, it's hard. It's for the most disciplined person or on the planet. They still have to fight those demons, you know.
100%.
It's exactly what it is, man. And so like as leaders in JKR, we just have to help people understand these dopamine processes and how they work. And so my team, we travel out of town often and we took away all distractions. I said, hey, you know, we're lucky enough to have Jefferson, as long as the revenue's there and he doesn't have any reason to pull the plug, like JKR foots the bill for our lodging, which is unheard of for most door knocking companies. And so it's because we focus a lot on small unit leadership and small teams. And we're very, very effective with our teams. Like we've recently cut some fat and let go of some people that weren't up to standard, and nothing against them. They're great people, but we're looking for particular people. And our production went through the roof. We had huge record breaking months last month. That was also the same month we implemented this dopamine kind of check. We took away video games and Xboxes because I was kind of at fault. I was saying, hey, I respect you guys as adults. Let's have you make your own decisions. But now that I think about it, like our society, especially younger generations with technology and everything, we're so ill prepared to manage our dopamine like this. We're not ready. And I'm not. I'm 34 years old. And
like
I'm just understanding this.
It was about 2 years ago. We were in Las Vegas in the Airbnb with the whole team. And I'm like, man, this drinking and these video games, they got to go. And you and Obi were standing up for him, you know? So
because you need a place to unwind.
Yeah.
At some point.
And
now I'm on your team.
Yeah. But you know, it takes a while, and it doesn't mean that I was right either. Like, and ideally these guys can manage it. They can be successful and produce enough to earn that gratification. But I think really what the idea is like figuring out like the what I brought up with the hunt. It's like figure out the things that give you instant gratification. How can you turn those into positives or things that are going to provide delayed gratification? Like whether it's what you eat or like with your business, what you're doing with your personal life. Like instead of doing those quick hit things like porn or video games or whatever it is, like, you know, if you're into porn, but you don't have a girlfriend, well, start getting your life together, start doing those long-term things. Because say Jefferson, for example, he has an amazing wife, and imagine what like it would be like not to have like those dopamine hits of having a partner, of having like an awesome mother for your children and all of that. You wouldn't be able to get that if you were just focused on like, you know, say chasing women, you know?
Yeah.
So whatever it is in your life, we all have our things that we're into or whatever, but you can turn that into, or even like Blake with like the gaming community you're a part of. You know, it's not just a game you guys plug into and it's just like, oh, we're just wasting time. Like you guys actually create a community, you have standards, you have something that these guys can be proud of. And it's not just this quick fix. Let me just first person shooter game, you know, get a couple shots off. You guys are actually building a community and you're learning lessons, you know, so whatever it is, you can kind of take it and figure out how to play the long game with it and turn it into a positive. And that dopamine, that ultimate dopamine hit at the end of that, worth way more than you'd ever get off of these little cheap hits, you know?
Yes.
It's quality over quantity.
The dopamine has to be behind the effort. Like it could be a cheap dopamine, like getting a Taco Bell, but like I'm not going to do that midday anymore. I'm going to do that at the end of the week. Now, once I've hit this goal, then I will have this dopamine. You stop yourself. You only reward yourself after the effort's been done. And I think Jefferson and I, and your wife probably hates me for me getting you into the habit of cigars, or the hobby rather. But that to me is what a cigar is. It's a handcrafted item of like pure tobacco that can be enjoyed for a celebratory reason after effort has been done. And I found like, man, it's nice. Like when we were in Cancun on the company trip, you know, that's where we were just in the dopamine. We were just kind of reflecting on the last year. Like, hey, we earned this trip. We were top performers. We got on this trip and we're here to enjoy each other's company. And so me and Jefferson were smoking a cigar a day, you know, just like, we're here. We're on the beach in Mexico. We're networking with people. And so that was some awesome dopamine that I'm looking forward to next year as well, once we hit even bigger goals, right? But that's something that I can push away from me, and it has meaning to it. It's a celebratory thing of dopamine. So you can set stuff up like that in your life.
And it's important that you do, because you can also, not everybody is constantly going through the dopamine cycles, all the easy dopamine, the food, the social media, everything in most people's lives is that way. But then, you know, I think about the last couple of years of my life and some of the high producers that I know that sell at a very high level. They manage their dopamine levels very well. They're okay with instant gratification. As a matter of fact, they're the highest performers I know are the best at managing delayed gratification. But then what it can turn into also is that you don't ever really celebrate. And your little dopamine is just like, God, that was like, I don't even care about this anymore. It's like on to the next thing. It's never enough. And I'm just boom, boom, boom. We got to grind. We got to keep rolling. And
You're never satisfied.
I spent the last couple of years kind of in that cycle where there was no satisfaction in it. It was just like, as soon as I was done with one goal, I had already decided on what the next one was. And I didn't even take time to celebrate, no time off, no cigars, just right on to the next thing. And it started to take its toll on me. Like people were noticing, like if I had, within the past 6 months, I had somebody for the first time ever in my life tell me that I looked tired. I was like, motherfucker, I do not look tired. And then in the same, like, no. 2 days later, I had somebody else tell it to me. And this is just like an indicator to me. And when I get these little 24-hour sicknesses and people are telling me that I'm tired, it's like you can only go so hard for so long and ignore the importance of sleep and, you know, these other important things that you need in your life to stay healthy for so long before your body's going to start to show some signs. So now that's, you know, January, smoking a couple of cigars was me finally getting to a place, because a year before that, I would have never even considered it. I'd said, go fuck yourself with those cigars. I don't have time for that shit. But I'm getting to a place now where you have to have time to celebrate. You got to take in a little bit of dopamine.
Yeah, it's crucial. And you got to be able to reset your dopamine too. Like the other end of the spectrum is like these coordinators, right? We're talking about, they don't have anybody telling them to reset their dopamine. So they're just chasing it. Like they're just scrolling like, and they're just staying up till like 4 a.m. And they're not even playing video games well. They're like, they're sucking, they're dying, they're losing. And they're just like, I got to get that dopamine. Cause they're just like, their dopamine center is like, it's got to catch up to produce more dopamine. It's like on empty, you know, the tank is empty and they're trying to get more because it's just like instant. They're addicted to it. So if you can just mellow out and chase the dopamine after the effort and get the dopamine after the effort, then it's like a way more healthier cycle. And then stopping every now and then to smell the roses and appreciate the small things along the way, and even learn to love the things about your job, your daily process, and get dopamine from that is even more important. But if you guys have both read Atomic Habits, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. By James Clear.
James Clear.
It's in chapter 9. For those of you that are listening, if you want to read this chapter later, it talks about, I wrote his name down here, Laszlo Polgar. He's a Polish man, Hungarian. And I think this was in the 80s or 70s, but he did an experiment, and his kind of mantra was like, a genius is never born, but is educated and trained to become a genius. Like, no one's born a genius. Mm-hmm. And so to prove it, he turned his 2 daughters. He did like this experiment
into chess
over
players,
their life.
right?
Yeah, he turned his daughters into world champion chess players, like grandmasters.
One daughter's still considered the #1 female chess player in the world.
Exactly. Yeah. And Polgar is their last name. But so I just highlighted this paragraph here. He says the Polgar sisters, they grew up in a culture that prioritized chess above all else, and it praised them and rewarded them for their accolades in chess, for their actions in chess. And so like their world became obsessive about chess, and it was normal. And so like whatever's in your culture or normal or whatever's like you can obsess about, usually is what you crave. For me, it was growing up Mormon. I'm not Mormon anymore. And I was addicted to being praised and to get rewarded for me being viewed as a righteous young man in the culture. And so my performance in that was, I was the best. I was like probably really annoying to be around. I was just trying to always be good at whatever I did and make sure people saw it. Yep. And that's how I got my dopamine. And so he tied it though to progress in the chess realm, and then they destroyed it. And like, he had to like wake his daughters up, or he had to like wake up and his daughter's like playing chess by herself in the kitchen or the bathroom or something. And she's like, Dad, the pieces are talking to me. Like, I can't. She was like, they were so obsessed with it because it was centered around this dopamine reward center. And so how that relates to like door knocking is a lot of guys, they don't get dopamine from doing their job. They don't get any satisfaction. And I think that's really what makes a true professional in your craft. If you don't enjoy woodworking, you're not going to be a good woodworker. If you don't enjoy painting, you're going to suck at painting. Because like you start painting and you're like, oh man, I just want to get to the finished product so I can get some dopamine out of this. Right. It's the same thing for me. I'm very creative. I love writing stories and like creating stuff. And I found out years ago, I only do that to a point where I can get a hit of dopamine, and then I just like drop the project. I would like write a guitar song out, and I'd write the first verse of lyrics, and I'd like sing it to whatever girl I was dating, or like my current wife, or a friend. And they'd be like, whoa, that's awesome, dude. And I'd be like, yeah, thanks. And I'd get praised and rewarded for that song. So I got about 10 guitar songs that only have one fucking verse, because I would just got what I needed. I got the dopamine.
On to the next thing.
Yeah. On to the next one.
Yeah.
But like, how can we relate that? How can you find dopamine on the doors when you're knocking doors?
I think it's important. And, as we wrap this thing up, I think that we need to kind of give people some tools, some tactical tools that they can take out to recognize what's going on with their own dopamine management or lack of management, and start paying attention moving forward of what your patterns are, how you start managing them a little bit differently to maximize for success and fulfillment and happiness in your life. Because if you're just there going through the motions as a door knocker, you're going to be miserable. Most people don't make it here anyways. So if you can't figure that out, you may as well pack it in now. But what we're trying to do is help people understand there's a couple of things that you can start to do to understand how you take this incredible opportunity where more millionaires are created than maybe any other industry besides maybe real estate.
Financial industry.
And financial industry. So there's just a handful of industries where you can start from nothing, literally nothing, no experience, fresh out of high school or fresh out of some other career, and just start from day one and be able to make a significant amount of money in the six figures within a very short period of time. I'm a living, breathing example of it. And I know several people that are within the door-to-door industry, not just windows. And the one thing that those people have in common is they found something that they could enjoy and get fulfillment out of and show up every single day with enthusiasm and conviction in what they did.
Yeah. And it was regardless, they could get that fulfillment regardless of the outcome, 100%. Like a sale or a cancellation or something. Those are stuff sometimes you can't control. Sometimes you can, sometimes you make mistakes, but if you tie it to those things, then you're on this wild roller coaster. Like, oh, I'm on top of the world. And now I lost all my
deals.
That's
dangerous. That's dangerous.
So dangerous.
So for me, it started out just seeing other people being successful doing sales. And I wanted to get out of what I was doing, which was being a mechanic. And it was a freaking miserable career path. And I just kind of landed there. I didn't want to stay there. So I ended up going to sales, and it was just for the money to begin with. And my first year was rough because that's the only thing that I had to go off of. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't work around people really that I liked hanging out with. And there was all these things that were fighting against me. So I was one of those people that had the roller coaster for the first 6 weeks, didn't make any sales. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I just quit everything and just left this $70,000 a year job to come do this and having no success. And then I got my first sell. Boom, I'm on this high. And then there's all kinds of new effort that has to go in to get the next sell and the next sell. And it was miserable for me. So until I started getting to a point where I was contributing to other people's success, and I started learning that I love training people. I love being able to help other people learn this stuff. So since I've started to figure that out, man, you can never run out of dopamine and of fulfillment once you find something in that career path that you enjoy like that. So it's led me to just a crazy amount of progress in a very short period of time, because it's, people talk about burnout, and when they're talking about burnout, it's because of some of those things. Like they're going through all these ups and downs, and they got a big high and then they got a big low, and there's nothing that can help them sustain any consistency with their dopamine levels.
Exactly.
And there's, they either can't get behind the company or they just don't believe in the product, whatever it is. It's our job as leaders to help them find what their answer is to sustain some consistency with their results. And their dopamine has so much to do with that.
Absolutely. And I feel like I obviously still track my finances, but I don't really pay attention to my checks. I track it. I keep tabs on it, obviously, but I'm not like, oh boy, I know, I'm not like worried about it. I know the cash flow is there because I've come to love solving people's problems and also determining whether I can solve their problem or not, or whether it makes sense for them. So even if they say no, if I have done all of the things I know how to do as a director here at JKR, I still get dopamine. Yeah, it's not as much dopamine as getting a sale, but I still feel like that was work well spent. It was a repetition. I tried some new word tracks, there's so many victories along the way because we use our mouth, we use our intelligence and our intellect in this job. You get kind of emotionally drained. You get really exhausted. It's not blue collar work where you're breaking your back, but you come to enjoy that, like the little semantics, right? Like when J-Rod explained recently in some training, it was like, you can pick up these body language. I think that was the last podcast we talked about, like body languages. Like that's a hit of dopamine for J-Rod, right? When he's in there and he's like, he senses something because of some body language. And so he addresses it. And they're like, that's exactly right. That's the stuff that I love about being a closer. And I don't need a sale, or I don't need a yes or a no. Like whatever they say, if they sign up or if they say no, I'm still enjoying it. I'm in the thick. Obviously, people who love playing football, they want to score touchdowns. But even if you're not scoring touchdowns, you're still playing football. You
still love football, yeah.
And I've said almost that same exact thing. Like, look, if I get the true no, I feel almost as good as if I got a yes. Yeah, I didn't get the money and stuff, and that's a difference maker. It's what makes it better. But I still get a dopamine hit if I get the true no. If I feel like I did my job, my due diligence, I unpacked whatever it was, and it just ultimately didn't make sense, I feel great about it. I'm like, well, I did my job, so hey, I'm good to go.
Yeah. Yep. To the best of your abilities, right? You did your job.
So now I got a quick question for you, Blake, because we've been working together for a long time now. And I've seen you go through some of these ups and downs. And over the past 6 months, you've been more consistent, more fired up, more passionate, and convicted in JKR windows than I've ever seen you before. And I'm curious to understand and to hear from you if you even understand where that came from and why there was such a big switch.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think too, I'm a very social person like we all are. And even we're talking about door-to-door sales, we're talking about our personal life and dopamine, but you also get dopamine and validation from the relationships that you build. And ever since I've worked at JKR, I've never been treated better as an employee. I've never been allowed to be myself, my off-colored fucking crazy self that I am. And like, if those of you that know me, like I can be really blunt and to the point and crass, but on the flip side, like I'm like an ass clown, man. I'll be goofing off, doing all sorts of stuff. And like, that doesn't really fly in a lot of corporate environments, right? They don't like me. I'm a little too spicy for that. My family doesn't like it when I'm around. They all get quiet because they know that if they got some stupid shit going on in their life, I'm going to like poke fun at them and like be there to have a good time.
You're a
like,
peacock, Blake, and we let
I'm
you fly.
Peacock. You got to let me fly.
We let you fly, bud.
Yeah. Aim for the bushes, dude. But it's been awesome working here. But I think what happened is we fell out of communication as peers. And as I started losing the respect, we started losing respect for each other this last fall. You know, we had some internal issues going on company-wide, nothing crazy, but we're just growing as a company. We're growing in maturity as individuals and as a group. And I kind of like fell out of communication, and I was being myself around some new hired people and you know, offering some advice to some new people. And we've come to the conclusion now that I was definitely in the right for doing that. And we had just kind of as a company, we'd let some standards slip. But anyway, for months, because I was questioned, I was like, Jeff and Jared think I like fucked up, you know, and in my mind, it was like, oh, Blake, you fucked up. You were too abrasive with these new hire people. And really the truth of it is like, those people, they're not ready for our culture. And we've kind of, as a company, I think we've doubled down on our culture we know is correct. So we let we let the culture kind of change a little bit, or we made some concessions to reach certain metrics. And, but that, it kind of put me on this like shaky ground. And so I realized I wasn't getting any dopamine from peer-to-peer validation. Number one, because I wasn't communicating well with y'all. And that's a two-way street, right? We've since fixed all of those issues.
And I think part of it was just a transfer in leadership for you. And, you know, just getting all that stuff worked out, ironed out.
Yeah. And it's now we're all friends again. And like, that's huge for me, man. Like if I'm not homies with the guys I'm working with, you know, the purpose that we're all driving for, like, you know, because of the teams I've been a part of and very objective mission-based teams, right? And it's like, you got each other's back regardless. And like, 100%. I felt like we kind of fell out of standing for a while and we needed to address some things. And so I lost a lot of motivation. I'm very socially motivated like that. If I got homies in the same boat, like we're going to fucking row that boat.
Yeah.
And bang the war drums and watch Jefferson look into the storm at the fucking bow, you know. But if we're not talking to each other, if we're not friends, if we're not on the same page, then it's easy to fall out of that. And so when we got back on the same page, it was like, oh yeah, like I love working here. I fucking love this job. Like, this is the best. Like I'm good at this shit. And like my friends know I'm good and I know they're good at stuff and they got my advice. Like we're giving each other advice. We're growing together.
Yep.
And then like, once I had camaraderie, that's basically what it is. That's like a huge, huge motivator for me. And so once that shot up and then it was like, hey, take your pod out. Like, and I don't know. I put a lot more effort into it, knowing that the homies got my back, right? Yeah. That the boys are in town, right?
Well, it took us a while to get that reeled back in, but I'm glad we did, bro, because it's been awesome to see your energy and the contribution that you bring to the whole company and your team. And it took us a little while to get to that point. And I think the better you get at communication, the more you're paying attention to your key players and how big of an impact that they can have when they're a little bit off and they're affecting others, the more intentional you can be with those one-on-ones and having the interactions that you need to have with people to understand where their head's at, why their energy is lacking. And I take 100% responsibility for that, because once we got on the same page and I did ask those questions and I got to hear you out and I got to explain it from my side, I saw that firelight in you again, bro.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for that, man. It's, I'm like, as men, right? Like if you're a testosterone filled dude and you're out to get it in life, whatever it is, the respect of other men, like your peers, that respect is so crucial. I had this quick story here of this. I had this Marine in my unit, and he was like labeled as the shit bag, right? Just a piece of shit. Always messing up. He's just that Marine. There's always one Marine, maybe two in every unit that's just kind of dropping the ball. And then like all of these alpha men just coming down so hard on that dude. And like, he's required by law and obligation to be there. So he's got to show up. And so like, it's just, it's crippling to know that you don't have the respect of your peers. So we found out by accident, I got paired with this Marine and we were doing a shoot house where they have this special concrete that will catch bullets and stuff so they can reuse it. Not the bullets, but the concrete doesn't, it's softer concrete, so it's not dangerous. And you can go in with live ammo and clear buildings and rooms together as a team. So you get live trigger training because there's a lot going on. It's a crazy, dangerous environment. And like we were talking about when we train, someone's muzzle going off close by to you that just causes all this overpressure. It's just chaos.
Yeah.
So we train in that environment. And I got stuck with this Marine and I was like, okay, you're going in first because I don't trust you. You're probably shooting me in the fucking back. So we do the drill. He does okay. I'm like, and I'm shooting my targets. And then they're like, wait, they're like, reset that, put new targets on, do it again. We do it again. And they're like, holy shit. And this particular Marine, turns out he's horrible at everything else. But at close range, live ammunition, the dude is fucking John Wick. Okay. He's putting bullet holes in the same hole, on the move, like moving quick, like Navy SEAL level, like special forces guy just blowing in, pop, 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 double tapping, doing box drills where you do 2-2, like 2 in the chest, head, and then you hit both of them in the head, like all this advanced, like close quarters combat stuff. And he turns out he's like a god. But guess what? On a distance range at 300 plus yards, the dude can't hit shit. He can barely even qualify on a rifle.
Wow.
So it's just like the weirdest thing. And so all of a sudden, this Marine got all this respect from this instructor staff. They don't know him. They just met him, right? But we've known him for 4 years, and he's been a shitbag for 4 years to us. And we would just always dump on him. They're like, this guy. And as soon as like they respected him and like we started respecting him and we had him do that drill over and over again. And like everybody was watching. And like, he just loved it. It was like his 15 minutes of fame. And then he turned out to be one of my best fire team leaders ever.
Incredible.
Like he was amazing fire team. He actually replaced like me as a squad leader later after I'd been gone, but he became a team leader right as I was leaving the Marine Corps. And like, he was still kind of a goofball and he'd mess up, but like he had so much more confidence and he had the respect of his peers in a small way. And that's all that it took. And as soon as he had that respect, he just fucking just performance went through the roof.
Isn't that interesting?
He was on time.
Isn't that interesting? Well, that's our responsibility as leaders, is to find, not everybody's going to be good at everything. And we got to find what people are good at and point it out, give them recognition, push them up, because people have a lot in them if you can get it out. They're not going to find it on their own a lot of the times. I wasn't able to find it on my own. Blake, I don't know about you, but I doubt that you were either.
No,
so as leaders, we have this huge responsibility to bring somebody into an environment where they've got an opportunity, but then have patience with them and encourage them and put them in the type of environment that they can thrive. And not everybody's going to make it still, but we got to have patience. We can't get fatigued by all the work that comes with developing people. And when it comes to these little conversations about instant gratification versus delayed gratification and managing your dopamine, we got to do it in a tactful way. And not everybody's going to take it the right way. That conversation you had with that group of directors up there, or the coordinators in Draper, that was the wrong message, but it was the people that needed to hear it. And they just took it the wrong way.
Right.
Or maybe it was the right message for the wrong people. Whatever it was perceived in a different way, and it's an opportunity for you to learn how to do it better next time. And I'll tell you what, dude, I've seen you develop since that to be way more aware and tactful. And obviously it's never happened again. We've never had to have that conversation again. It took one time. And you're very similar to me in that way, where the perception of other people, I don't give a fuck what people think about me, but I give a fuck about how people feel when I talk to them.
Right.
I want to make people feel fucking awesome and inspire them. And when I don't do that, and I do the opposite from whatever I was trying to do didn't work, I'm never fucking doing that again. Yeah.
That's a good point, man. Cause I actually just had, like, on our kickoff in Grand Junction the other week, I did have a rough conversation with a group, and we had to lay down the law again. And I approached it a little bit differently this time with more wisdom, but it was the correct audience, and they took it very well, and they went out and just had a killer Saturday.
That is a prime example, because I heard that conversation that you had with those boys come up with at least 3 or 4 of the people that were in that room, and everybody was fucking inspired.
Oh, that means, okay. Yeah. That makes me feel good, because I've put a lot of attention to that and make sure
I got a lot of great
there's a balance. We got
a team too.
Yeah, me and Jared both heard.
Right.
Yeah.
We both heard about that.
You were received exactly how you wanted to deliver that. That's how it was received. And that's a token to what you've put into developing your leadership, because I know that we've had conversations about things to work on. And I mean, if anybody out of this company has made me a better leader, I think it's you, Blake. You've put me through the ringer on a couple things, but it's always challenged me to look within and become the better version of myself. And then also, you've always shown so much that even though some of the difficulties we went through, it was always worth the investment. It was always like, and if we're tying it back to dopamine, the easy thing to do would be to, like, just chew your ass or whatever it is. Delaying it in the sense of talking to you like an adult and like a man and respecting you and working with you. And now it's turned into this thing to where you're one of our very, very best leaders, very best producers in the entire company. And to delay all of that gratification of what it would have been just to let you have it and to see what you're doing right now, way more dopamine than I ever would have gotten just being a terrible leader for you. So thank you for making me better and making our team better, man. You're a huge part of what we do.
Hey, thank you. That makes me feel real. That's some dopamine right there. I feel it.
I just got a little shot of dopamine. Come on, man. That was awesome.
Yeah. No, but I have to tip my hat to you guys. Like, you guys have given me the chance to do that, and you've had hard conversations with me, calling me out on my bullshit. You know, because I'm just walking into this stuff about dopamine right now. You know, I've known about how it works, but like the micro, like, application in your life to, like, okay, why do I do a task? Why do I do something? Why do I do this habit? But yeah, you guys have been awesome too. Like, as far as leadership goes, like, all of our leadership has leveled up this last year. We had a lot of hard conversations. We had a lot of waves crash into the boat, and we just had to bail that water out. You know, we had to like get down to what was going on and fill the holes, fill the gaps,
Yep.
rearrange the boat, and then we're back at it. And now it's not smooth sailing, but we're better sailors for bigger waves. You know?
100%. It's part of any growing business, any type of growth that you're going to have, either personally or professionally, is going to have some bumps in the road. It's going to have some opportunities for you to learn, and you can either stay stuck and play victim, or you can take those all as opportunities to grow and learn. And I think we've all done a fairly good job at that. So wrapping up, y'all, dopamine. You may not have ever heard of it, but now you have. And I didn't know much about it before the conversations I've had with these gentlemen over the past couple of weeks. But it's important you're paying attention to this kind of stuff. How are you managing your dopamine? Have you ever put much thought into your instant gratification versus delayed gratification? If you want to do something special with your life, I would start paying attention to it. Because if you don't have the ability to handle some delayed gratification, you're going to be chasing those dopamine, instant gratification for the rest of your life, and you're going to end up mediocre. Just reality. That's why 99% of people that we know are freaking mediocres, because they never developed it. They never paid attention long enough to do anything about it. So start paying attention. Challenge yourself to have something that's delayed so you can get your dopamine after the success. 1% better every day. See you guys next time.